Have you ever stopped to consider who you really are? If all the masks you wear were stripped away, what or who would be left? What if the I you call yourself is just a reflection of others' expectations? Carl Jung once said, "Those who look outside dream, those who look inside awaken." But are we truly prepared for that awakening? From birth, we are constantly shaped by expectations. From family, culture, society, each telling us who we ought to be. We grow up believing our identity is fixed, yet deep inside there's a nagging feeling. We don't fully understand who we really are. Why do we sometimes feel like strangers even to ourselves? Psychology reveals that we aren't a single unified I, but rather many different selves coexisting, often clashing. There are parts of our personality that we hide or suppress, only for them to emerge unexpectedly at times. Have you ever acted or spoken and later wondered, why did I do that? As if someone else inside had taken over? This happens because within us reside forces we don't always grasp, archetypes, shadows, and unconscious patterns we've inherited and developed over time. In this video, we'll delve into the psychology of self-understanding through Jung's lens. We'll explore why truly knowing ourselves is so challenging, how our psyche is structured, and most importantly, how we can turn this insight into practical, transformative power in our lives. But first, a word of caution. Self-discovery isn't always comfortable. You may uncover truths you'd rather avoid. But if you have the bravery to continue, the reward is the freedom to be your authentic self. Let's get started. If there is any journey truly difficult, it is the inward journey. Knowing yourself seems straightforward. After all, who else could know you better than you? Yet this path is riddled with obstacles. From childhood, we learn to see the world through the perspectives of others. Our sense of self is shaped by family, culture, and society's expectations. We hear repeatedly who we should be, how we should act, and what we should want. Amid this torrent of outside influence, where does our true self actually begin? Jung warned us about the persona, a mask we adopt to fit into the world. This persona isn't deception, but a filtered version of ourselves, a social identity created to satisfy our surroundings. The problem arises when we mistake that mask for our real self. We spend so much time playing a role that we come to believe it is who we truly are, forgetting there is so much more beneath the surface. When life pushes us to confront our contradictions, whether through failure, crisis, or profound change, the facade we wear begins to fracture. What lies beneath that facade can be unsettling, even frightening. Beyond the persona, there is another significant hurdle on the path to self-awareness: the shadow. The shadow consists of all the parts of ourselves we suppress, refuse to acknowledge, or reject. It holds the impulses, desires, and feelings we deem unacceptable or inappropriate. Jung taught that the more we deny our shadow, the stronger its hold on us becomes. It often reveals itself unexpectedly, in sudden fits of anger, self-sabotaging actions, or recurring destructive patterns that we can't seem to break. Frequently, the traits we harshly judge in others are reflections of what we fail to recognize within ourselves. Have you ever noticed how certain behaviors in others irritate you without clear reason? That might be a sign you are projecting your own shadow onto them. Another key obstacle to self-knowledge is fear. Truly understanding ourselves demands bravery because it requires letting go of comforting illusions. Many prefer to stay inside familiar stories rather than confront uncomfortable truths about who they are. It's easier to see ourselves as victims of circumstance than to admit that we sometimes undermine our own choices. It's simpler to accept things just are than to question why we feel lost or dissatisfied. The mind builds defenses to avoid facing this reality, making excuses, justifying actions, and convincing ourselves that we already know enough about who we are. But do we really? What complicates this journey even further is the complexity of the human psyche. We are not a single unified self, but rather a patchwork of conflicting parts. At times we seek safety, at others we long for adventure. We crave acceptance, yet also want to express our true selves. These inner contradictions are unavoidable, and ignoring them only distances us from our authentic being. Society, however, teaches us to settle on one identity, one clear path. The reality is that we are always evolving, constantly becoming something new. Socrates said, "Know thyself." But what he didn't say is that this knowing is never fixed or complete. There is no final destination, no definitive answer to who we are. Self-awareness is an ongoing journey. Every experience, every error, every fresh insight uncovers more about who we are. Ironically, the deeper our self-knowledge grows, the more we realize how much remains unknown. At its core, the greatest challenge of self-discovery isn't a lack of answers, but a reluctance to ask the difficult questions. Are we prepared to look inward, even if the truth is uncomfortable? Are we ready to challenge the narratives we build about ourselves? Knowing oneself takes courage. It is a step into uncertainty. And maybe that is precisely what makes this path so compelling. If understanding oneself feels like navigating a maze, Jung offered us a guide. His theory of psychological types not only clarifies how we think, feel, and perceive reality, but also sheds light on why we often feel out of sync with our true selves. He identified four primary functions of human consciousness: thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition. Moreover, each person tends to have a dominant attitude, which can be either extroverted or introverted. This unique combination shapes our personality profoundly and influences how we engage with the world around us. Those whose thinking function leads tend to approach life logically, systematically, and objectively. They value consistency and rationality, often placing truth above emotions. Conversely, people guided by feeling make judgments based on personal values and emotional considerations. For them, decisions hinge more on maintaining harmony in relationships than on detached logic. Neither approach is superior. However, depending on our upbringing and surroundings, we may suppress one in favor of the other. How often have we heard phrases like, "Don't be so logical," or "Stop being so emotional"? The sensing function is linked to the present moment, tangible experiences, and the details of the physical environment. Individuals with sensing dominance tend to be grounded, realistic, and attentive to what their senses confirm. On the flip side, intuition focuses on the unseen, grasping possibilities, patterns, and subtle interconnections. Intuitive people look beyond the surface, predict future developments, and sense what's coming before concrete proof exists. Here lies one of the most important aspects of Jung's model. Besides these four functions, each person has a predominant attitude. Extroverts direct their energy outward, seeking stimulation, social interaction, and external validation. Introverts, however, turn inward, focusing on thoughts, reflections, and inner feelings. This distinction explains why some individuals gain energy from social gatherings, while others feel exhausted after prolonged interaction and need solitude to recharge. The path to self-awareness involves identifying which function governs our mind and which are underdeveloped or neglected. Jung pointed out that our weakest function usually resides in the unconscious, subtly influencing us and often undermining our efforts. For instance, a highly logical person might suppress emotions until they burst out uncontrollably. An intuitive individual might overlook practical concerns, becoming lost in ideas without translating them into action. The fascinating part is that as we grow, we are called to embrace and integrate these less dominant functions. However, this balancing act doesn't happen naturally. It demands effort, facing inner challenges, and sometimes undergoing crises. People stuck in a single function risk becoming inflexible and predictable. The extreme thinker may turn cold and unfeeling. The feeling dominant person might drown in unfocused emotions. The censor can become limited to the present, missing the broader perspective. The intuitive might drift away from tangible reality. Jung also introduced a crucial idea, the inferior function. This is the part of ourselves that we tend to suppress, yet paradoxically, it holds the key to our completeness. The inferior function often emerges during stressful times, exposing aspects of ourselves we'd rather deny. A logical person might suddenly experience an emotional, irrational outburst. Someone driven by feelings might respond with unexpected coldness. These reactions aren't failures, but signs that our psyche is striving for equilibrium. The inferior function isn't a defect to be fixed, but a gateway to personal growth. Herein lies the real challenge, embracing this hidden part of who we are. Self-awareness isn't about reinforcing what we already know about ourselves, but about opening up to what we tend to ignore or fear. By understanding our psychological types, we gain fresh insight into our actions and struggles. We start to recognize our decisions more clearly and, importantly, learn to appreciate the unique way each individual experiences life. Jung didn't design this framework to box us into categories, but to illuminate the fluid and dynamic nature of the mind. He viewed psychological types not as fixed labels, but as energies that require balance throughout our lifetime. When we stop resisting the parts of ourselves that live within and begin to integrate the various facets of our personality, we don't feel restricted. We feel liberated. That's the moment true transformation begins. If Jung taught us anything, it's that no one is born complete. Our entire lives are dedicated to becoming whole by incorporating those parts of ourselves we once ignored, repressed, or projected onto others. He called this lifelong journey individuation, a vital psychological process rather than a mere philosophical concept. It's what distinguishes a genuine life from one spent on autopilot. However, this journey is far from easy. It requires confronting not only our self-image, but also everything we have denied within. From early childhood, we learn to act according to the expectations of those around us. To gain acceptance, we develop a social mask, the persona. If intelligence is valued in our environment, we strive to appear smart. If strength is prized, we hide our vulnerabilities. If pleasing others matters most, we become skilled at adapting. The problem is that, at its core, the persona is just a mask. It may serve a useful purpose, but it never fully represents who we truly are. The more we identify with this curated version of ourselves, the further we drift from our authentic nature. Behind the persona lies what we try to conceal, the shadow. The shadow consists of all we have rejected, not because these parts are inherently bad, but because they clashed with the rules and norms of our surroundings. It may include suppressed anger, forbidden desires, talents left unexplored, or even positive qualities we were taught to reject. However, the shadow never truly disappears. If we avoid confronting it, it emerges in indirect ways, leading us to behave in ways we don't fully understand. That hurtful remark that slips out unexpectedly, or those self-sabotaging urges that arise without warning. These are often the shadow trying to break through. The process of individuation starts when we stop fleeing from our shadow and begin to embrace it. This doesn't mean giving in to every impulse, but rather acknowledging their presence and seeking to understand their origins. Jung taught that life's purpose is not to achieve perfection, but to attain wholeness. And becoming whole means accepting even the parts of ourselves we dislike. This is why the journey is so challenging. It compels us to confront directly what we have long avoided. Beyond the persona and shadow, Jung described additional forces shaping our inner world. Among these are the archetypes of the animus and anima, symbolizing the masculine aspect within women and the feminine aspect within men. This is not about biological gender, but the presence of opposing energies within each person. The animus may appear as an inner voice urging reason and control, while the anima flows as emotion and intuition. Our interaction with these energies often has a profound effect on our choices, especially in relationships. When we project our animus or anima onto someone else, we expect them to fill an internal void. Yet no one can make us whole. Only we can find completeness within ourselves. This brings us to the psyche's central archetype, the self. The self transcends the ego. It is the deepest essence of our identity, encompassing both light and darkness. Unlike the persona, which is crafted for the external world, the self represents our true nature. The paradox is that, although the self is our most genuine state, many pass through life without ever connecting to it. Individuation is essentially a call to reestablish this connection. Yet the path is rarely straightforward. It often unfolds through crises, losing a job, the breakup of a relationship, or profound existential questioning. These moments signal that something inside demands transformation. Resisting this process only intensifies our suffering. As Jung wisely said, "What you resist persists." The only way forward is through confrontation. This journey may be uncomfortable, but it offers great rewards. The deeper our self-understanding, the greater our freedom to live authentically. We stop living to satisfy others, cease seeking endless external approval, and break free from unconscious, destructive cycles. Individuation isn't about becoming a new person, but rediscovering who we truly are beneath the layers shaped by life's demands. Perhaps the most freeing realization is that all the answers lie within us already. The obstacle has never been ignorance, but the refusal to acknowledge what has always been present. The question remains, are we truly willing to look within? Understanding who you are is not a final achievement, but rather a beginning. Self-awareness isn't meant only to satisfy intellectual curiosity. It fundamentally shapes how we make choices, overcome difficulties, and connect with others. Yet there's a challenge. Many believe that simply recognizing their habits and motivations is enough to change. But awareness by itself doesn't create transformation. Genuine change demands action. The initial obstacle to changing your life through self-knowledge is resistance. The ego resists change. Even when we realize we're trapped in harmful patterns, there is an unconscious fear of what might happen if we break away. After all, our limitations bring a strange comfort. They are familiar and predictable. Family pain, no matter how intense, can feel safer than the unknown of something new. How often do we say we want to change, only to find ourselves repeating the same behaviors deep down? This occurs because every change comes at a cost, and for many that cost seems heavier than remaining the same. Jung stated, "No one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." In other words, it's not enough to desire a better version of yourself. You must confront the parts that undermine your growth. If you constantly face the same difficulties, ask yourself, what part of me gains something from this? Though it may seem strange, suffering can hold hidden benefits. For instance, feeling like a victim can help avoid responsibility. Fearing rejection can justify doing nothing. Perfectionism can shield against failure. These dynamics go unnoticed until we bring them to light, and once conscious, they lose their control over us. Still, awareness alone isn't sufficient. The next phase is experience. Genuine self-knowledge arises from lived practice. If you want to truly know yourself, watch how you behave when no one is looking. Your spontaneous reactions, your instinctive urges, moments of discomfort, all these reveal your authentic self. It's true that the rational mind cannot fully understand everything happening beneath the surface. When someone irritates you, ask yourself, does this person mirror something I refuse to accept in myself? When anxiety strikes, try to discern whether it's a real warning or simply a leftover echo from outdated beliefs. It's also vital to release the illusion that there is a final, perfected version of yourself. Many chase self-awareness as if it were a destination, a place where everything suddenly makes sense and problems vanish. The reality is that we are always evolving. You are not the same person you were 5 years ago, and in 5 years, you will have changed again. This means self-knowledge is not a fixed endpoint, but a continuous journey. The more we embrace this truth, the less we feel trapped by the need for absolute answers. Another crucial matter is the risk of living solely inside the mind. Some individuals get so absorbed in trying to understand themselves that they end up disconnected from actual experience. They read, study, and analyze their feelings, but they don't genuinely engage with life. True self-awareness is proven through everyday actions. It reveals itself in how we confront difficulties, how we treat others, and how authentic we remain even under pressure. Most importantly, no journey of self-discovery is complete without tangible action in the real world. What good is it to understand your fears if you continue to hide? What purpose does recognizing your patterns serve if you never challenge them? Transformation requires taking risks. Eventually, you have to step beyond ideas and take concrete steps. This might mean setting boundaries, shedding an identity that no longer fits, or opening yourself to entirely new experiences. Ultimately, real change happens the moment you choose to live differently. Self-knowledge doesn't promise a life free of pain, but it offers something even more valuable: the power to consciously decide who you want to be. That freedom, in the end, is what truly counts. The path of self-discovery has no final destination. It's not a straight line with a clear endpoint, but an ongoing cycle of learning, challenges, and growth. Throughout this video, we've explored why self-understanding is so challenging, the psychological forces that shape us, and how this insight can help us live more genuinely. But ultimately, it comes down to one question: are you ready to look inside? Many spend their lives running away from themselves, avoiding their inner truths, distracting themselves with busy routines, hiding behind relationships, work, or entertainment. They do everything possible to escape facing their shadow because they know, often unconsciously, that true change cannot happen without discomfort. Self-awareness doesn't guarantee happiness, but it grants something far more powerful: the freedom to be your authentic self. Carl Jung said that being normal is the aim of those who fail, because normality means conforming to external expectations, while wholeness means fully embracing yourself with your strengths, flaws, contradictions, and everything that makes you unique. Society pressures us to conform, to act as if we have all the answers, and to conceal our doubts. But the reality is none of us truly knows what we're doing. We're all learning, stumbling, and growing. The greatest courage lies not in pretending to be strong, but in admitting that we are a work in progress. If you've reached this point, it means that in some way this quest for self-understanding is already part of your life, and that alone is a significant milestone. Many never even begin. If anything here has resonated with you or sparked reflection, then this video has already achieved its purpose. But simply having knowledge isn't enough. The real question is, how will you use it? Thank you so much for being here and taking the time to join this conversation. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, not just for the algorithm, but so I know this content resonates with you. And if you want to continue exploring this journey alongside me, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. By the way, since we're on the topic of self-discovery, there's another video appearing on the screen right now that might catch your interest. I won't spoil what it's about. If you're curious, just click and see for yourself. Hope to see you there.